Hey guys, welcome to Comic Asylum. I'm Jesse.
And I'm Sean.
And I know. Today we're going to be reading The Cape, based off a short story by Joe Hill. It was written by, as I flipped the page, by Jason Ciaramella, and with art by Zach Howard. And yeah, what did you think of it?
Well, I mean, it was an interesting read. It's not quite the same kind of read that we've been doing. I mean, we've done Superman, Batman, and Spider-Girl.
Right, we've pretty much been sticking to, your stereotypical superhero Marvel and DC comics so far. This is something a little bit different. This is a one-off graphic novel published by IDW, and it's definitely not a superhero book.
No, but it sets itself up to almost make it seem like it will be.
Yeah.
So, just a real quick synopsis of what the book is about. It's about a boy who has this cape growing up. He's outside with his cape playing with his brother. They're playing superhero and villain. And he climbs up into a tree and goes to jump off because he knows his cape apparently can make him fly. He jumps off. He's floating there in the air for a moment. And then the cape gets caught as he's moving away from the tree, ripped off of him, and he falls down and he ends up suffering a serious injury. Then it flash forwards, several years in the future. And
he's a bum.
Yeah, he's basically become...
Not like homeless. But.
An unsuccessful, self-loathing person. He is miserable all the time at other people's success. Mm-hmm. He can't seem to catch a break, and blames the world for the fact that he can't catch a break.
Even though it's very clearly... It's not like he's been hard done by. It's very clear that he's made bad decisions in his life. He chose not to pursue post-secondary education when his girlfriend and brother did. He got a job delivering pizzas and then decided to get drunk while driving, so he got a DUI and lost his job. These are things that,
Yeah,
he brought on himself.
He also has a lot of resentment towards the other characters, and as the story progresses, you see that his views of the other characters are actually not quite what those characters are. He has made up almost fake illusions of what these people are to him, like his mother and his brother and his ex-girlfriend. So, continuing on with the plot, he ends up getting reconnected with the Cape when he ends up having to move back home because he loses his apartment.
Yeah, his girlfriend dumps him.
And what happens is he flies out, and this is where the story kind of really goes its own route.
You almost get that, Christopher Reeve's Superman scene where he shows up at the girl's house, right, at her window. And is like, I can fly, right? And they almost do that same scene where they go flying, right?
He flies her up to the moon.
Yeah.
They have what, would be considered like a Christopher Reeve kind of moment, or even like in Aladdin, for example, with the magic carpet ride.
Yeah, yeah.
Jasmine doesn't believe that Aladdin, is a real prince, and he goes and walks off the edge, and she's like, oh my God, he's going to die. Yeah. And then he's not dead. He's
they also recently did that in Venture Bros.
Sure,
yeah.
I don't watch it.
I love it. I just binge watched the new season, so I just had to bring that up. So they go flying, and then he starts kind of talking about how it kind of sucked being dropped by her and stuff like that, and then he drops her.
Yes, he drops her because, as he puts it, it's not easy to be dropped by someone you love. Because they had just recently broken up, and she had actually been in close contact with his brother.
Yeah.
They had remained friends. She actually dated his brother originally at the beginning of the book.
And let's be clear, by she was talking to his brother, we mean, and it's set up in that it's purely platonic. And it's just kind of they're friends and they're worried about the main character.
Eric.
Yeah. And, but he kind of thinks that, they're having sex on the side.
Yep. So he, as Jesse was saying, takes her up, flies her in the moonlight, shows her like, oh, look at all my awesome powers. And then starts talking, according to his girlfriend, out of character. Starts saying that, as I stated, oh, it's not easy to be dropped by someone you love, and I know that you're, sleeping with my brother. I know that you were just on the phone with him before I showed up. And then he drops her. He drops her so far she falls into a fountain on the ground, and she's left a bloody, mangled mess.
Mm-hmm.
So the way this is set up at the beginning, which is what I found very interesting. When it shows in the first chapter of this book, him playing villains and superheroes with his brother.
Yeah, they're like 8 years old.
Yeah. You instantly assume that the character with the cape is the superhero. And
the character is saying, get down from here, you dickhead.
Yeah. His brother, who's pretending to be a character called the Streak.
Yeah.
Is chasing him down and can't get him. He's like, you come back here and fight me, you coward. So it's set up so that you think he's going to be the hero, and it's the complete opposite because he commits this act of murder against his ex-girlfriend. And I remember seeing it when it happened. I was like, wow, I actually was not expecting that. It was kind of out of the blue.
Yeah.
And then he goes on this almost vendetta rampage where he's not just going to extract revenge on her, but he wants to get revenge on anyone that he considers to have wronged him in his life. That includes his brother, his mother, the cops investigating his girlfriend's murder. I mean, this story escalates. Poor bear. Yeah, this story escalates real quickly. So after he kills his girlfriend, the cops come to investigate. They're pretty suspicious of him. Which is reasonable. They would be. Yeah, I mean, they found blue fibers, which were from his cape. They found hair that they're going to test against a sample of his own. So what does he do? He flies out of the room, or out of the house after they do their questioning. He goes to a local zoo where he ties a lasso around a bear.
Yeah, Wonder Woman style.
Yeah, flies the bear across to where these cops are in their convertible and drops a grizzly bear on them. And then they get mangled and eaten, and now they're dead.
Yeah. Grizzly bear's fine.
Yeah, the grizzly bear's fine. Of course it is.
Don't worry, PETA.
It's a freaking bear.
Yeah. Well, it got dropped by pretty high.
He didn't have it up in the air. Like, he kind of like hovered with the bear, so the bear couldn't run away. But
I mean, it seemed like it was a good 20.
I think it was enough so he could fly over fences. It wasn't that high.
I don't know.
But regardless, our supposed hero has now killed his ex-girlfriend and 2 cops.
And he does not stop there.
Yeah. His brother is ideally his next target. And his brother, being very concerned now because of, his ex-girlfriend's murder, hearing about these cops, has his mother come out to visit him in Boston. So she's there, staying with her son, who is now a Harvard-educated doctor. He's done very well for himself. Which is actually a contentious point in the story, is that our main character, Eric, is incredibly bitter and jealous towards his brother. Which probably is the reason it leads to him assuming that his girlfriend is cheating on him because, his brother is a very successful doctor. He can do no wrong, essentially. So he goes out there. There's a confrontation in his brother's apartment between him and his mother and his brother. He ends up actually throwing... he makes his brother wear a mask like he used to when they played superhero and villain. But he's actually doused this mask in gasoline. He makes his brother put it on, and the condition is he'll let go of his mom, who he has at knife point. He'll let her go as long as he puts it on.
Yeah.
So, of course, his brother complies. And then he throws a cigarette butt at his face, and it lights it on fire. This doesn't kill him, though. His brother is horribly mangled. He's been burned like crazy. And then our villain flies off.
He's a villain.
Yeah.
He's not an anti-hero.
No, he's straight up villain. This guy is a murdering psycho. He flies off because the cops are all outside now. They've been called, so he flies away. Next day, his mom is going to go down to Florida to stay with their dad's sister, their aunt, and so she's in the plane. And then, of course, our cape-wearing villain shows back up. And this was my favorite part of the book.
You know what? I was literally just about to say that.
He takes a chainsaw and he's flying towards the aircraft. And the pilots are like, oh my god, what the hell?
Yeah.
What is that? That's a person, and he's flying right for us. So they're in panic mode. They're trying to
hard left.
Yeah, they're trying to outmaneuver him. Now, mind you, they're still flying over top of the city of Boston. They haven't left the city's area yet. He takes this chainsaw and he throws it into the turbine of the jet. And of course, at this point, the turbine explodes, takes the wing off, the plane starts going down, lands right in the middle of the city, explodes. His mom is now dead, not to mention everyone else who's on the 737, and anyone who was in the impact area within the city of Boston.
Yeah.
That was a lot of people to kill in like 3 panels. And that was like, when I read that and saw the illustration, I was like, holy crap. Ultimately, it ends with a confrontation between him and his brother. His brother sneaks out of the hospital, goes up to this, really tall building in the city. They have this, this heart-to-heart, if you will, and Eric, our main villain here, picks his brother up, flies him into the air. But before his brother left, he managed to tape some scissors to the side of his leg. So he pulls them out, cuts the cape, and our villain falls to his death, while our hero, or his brother, is...
Our hero.
Yeah, our hero. He ended this murderous rampage of his brother, is left holding onto the cape, floating in the sky.
Yeah.
Really short story.
Yeah, and then his brother throws it in the...
Yeah. Well, actually, yeah.
The last words are, I'm throwing this in the fucking fire.
He burns it. He gets rid of it.
Which was smart. That doesn't actually happen too much.
It doesn't.
How often, like, even when you watch, like, horror movies and stuff, is it like, oh, let's keep this horrible relic that's going to cause...
I would have kept it. That's just me, though.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have dropped a 737 on the city of Boston.
You know what, if that happened to your brother and your mom and stuff, like, if I was that dude, I probably would have burnt it too.
I would try to make up for the sins of my brother by being a superhero.
Yeah.
With a cape. But, I mean, then that's the basis of the story. Again, really short read. I think I read it in 30 minutes. There's not a lot of writing in it. It's a pretty simple read. I think even like an 8-year-old could read this.
I don't know if an 8-year-old should read this.
Probably not. It's pretty gruesome.
Actually, you know what? It's pretty awesome. If I was 8 years old, I'd want to read this.
I don't know if I'd let an 8-year-old read this.
I don't know if I'd let an 8-year-old read it. But if I was 8 years old, I'd want to read this.
That's totally fair. But yeah, that's the basis of the story. So, I mean, overall, I liked it. It was, like I said, it's not what I expected. I expected a superhero story.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not familiar with Joe Hill's work. He is, as Jesse pointed out at the beginning, an author who's written short stories before. This is just basically the comic illustration of said story. The overall story, though, is it's realistic. I mean, this is about a guy who is so unhappy with where he is in his life that he's blaming everyone else for his problems, and when he is given this ability, he abuses it for his own personal gain. That's my thought. I mean,
well, and that's what I really liked about it. I mean, I think that everyone kind of has that person in their life, that person that doesn't quite live up to their potential, and as opposed to kind of looking at how they can improve themselves, they blame everyone else around them. And this story did a really good job of epitomizing that, basically.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
I mean, I grew up in a small town, and a lot of people in that town act in the same manner. A lot of the people I know had a lot of potential, and still do. The problem is that they get into a position where they're not happy, and they almost get into a rut. They don't want to change. Our main character in this is exactly that. He doesn't want to change. His girlfriend is super amazing to him. Doesn't care that he skipped out on going to a job interview. Hasn't pushed him any way, shape, or form away from her. She's just like really loving to him.
She just wants him to be happy.
Exactly. Happy in whatever he chooses to do. Yeah. She doesn't want him to be like her, his brother. There's even one point where he makes a comment like, "Oh, I know you're sleeping with my brother or I know you're into my brother because, he's a Harvard graduate and he's successful." And she says, "No, I love you for you. It has nothing to do with that. I want you to be happy." And it kind of all comes down to this character and the way he's painted these other characters.
And this character is given an opportunity that no one else in the world has, right? And what does he do with it? He doesn't do great things. He basically pisses it away on petty vendettas.
And kills a lot of people doing it.
Yeah.
He, in like 2 days, becomes a mass murderer. And that's exactly it. He uses it as, like Jesse said, to solve, to finish personal vendettas out.
Mm-hmm.
He paints his mother to be a horrible, horrible person. And a lot of it stems from the fact that, yes, after he had his accident, she takes the cape away. Because she doesn't want her son jumping from trees. I mean, she obviously did not know that he could fly legitimately with his cape. Because, I mean, that would be silly.
Mm-hmm.
So she takes it away because she doesn't want him jumping from trees. At that point, his attitude towards his mom, he is mean to her. Mm-hmm. He calls her all sorts of names. He's just downright offensive. He has no regard for her. But then when you see the flashbacks to when they were kids, when he was in the hospital, from his brother's angle, that's when you see that, no, she took it away because it was a safety issue, but it wasn't angry. She didn't take it away out of concern. She didn't take it away because you can't have this power. She took it away because, yes, she was genuinely concerned.
Yeah, because her kid had this horrible accident.
Yeah. His view of his girlfriend is that she's cheating on him all the time. She's not happy with what he's doing with his life, and he's frustrated to no end that he, quote unquote, can't make her happy. But all of this contributes to the downfall of the relationship. Mm-hmm. And even after they've broken up, she's in conversation with his brother, discussing how she's still concerned about him and still loves him.
And that's the really interesting thing about this character. And while I don't like Eric, I like the character because it's less about his circumstance and more about his attitude towards the things around him, even the good things around him. He can't appreciate.
No, and that's, I mean, this book gives you a true insight into the creation of a supervillain. Mm-hmm. If you were to have a manuscript on what goes through a supervillain's head, I think this would be an excellent start.
It's certainly not a bad one.
I mean, he literally makes things up in his own mind because of the way he's perceiving things that aren't actually happening or aren't actually there. Yeah. And he creates these obsessive hatreds for them. Mm-hmm. And that's what results in his girlfriend dying, his mom dying, his brother eventually killing him, the cops who are investigating him dying, all the citizens who were below the plane when it crashed dying. Like, this is the insight of a supervillain.
Nobody matters but him and what he's feeling.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, all in all, it's different from the other things that we've read. I mean,
well, actually, like this is kind of a unique episode for us because for once we're kind of on the same page. Normally, we read stuff that I know a lot about and I've read. This is the first time that we've both kind of gone into something cold.
Yeah, cold and way different from the mainstream stuff. Mm-hmm. I mean, Batman, okay, he's a vigilante. He might kill people on some things, but overall, he's doing it for the betterment of society.
Batman should not kill.
Well, regardless.
Yeah. We'll talk about that with Batman v Superman.
He's doing that for the betterment of society. Mm-hmm. Superman is obviously, the virtuous, awesome, super amazing person who just saves everyone always. Mm-hmm. I mean, in Spider-Girl, same idea. She's a superhero. She wants to do good. Yeah. This character is not that. He is so far off his rocker.
He's selfish.
He is, and it.
If I had to describe him in one word, that would probably be it.
And it says a lot about how an individual person would react to having such an interesting power. Me and Jesse actually had a conversation earlier in regards to various DC characters, mainly Superman, The Flash, and Green Arrow. Yeah. The big thing being that Superman doesn't need to kill because Superman is this, paragon of good. Mm-hmm. The Flash is kind of this in between. He doesn't kill, but the Flash
actually
not on purpose. And okay, fine, maybe he has on purpose.
It's happened once.
But he understands consequence because he's capable of time travel. He's capable of going to different dimensions. He understands the ramifications of his actions.
Yeah.
Superman is an alien. It doesn't matter. Like, he's not even upholdable to a human mindset. But someone like the Green Arrow is just a man. I mean, to hold such skills and power and not allow emotion or irrationality to rule you when you have such great strength and capabilities would be very difficult. Mm-hmm. And this book kind of gives you that insight. This is, yes, a person who is not doing so well in his life and unfortunately takes his awesome power and does a lot of bad with it. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about the art a little bit. It's actually a really interesting style. I have never seen an art style like this before. It's kind of gritty, but at the same time also tries to be optimistic. And you actually see the art change as you're going through depending on whose view you're looking at. So if Eric, the main character, is reflecting back on the events that happened when he was a kid, things look a little more run down and dingy. Mm-hmm. Whereas in the opposite, when his brother is thinking back to these events, things look a little more brighter and cheerful. Mm-hmm. I mean, that obviously is reflective of the mood of each character, right? Their mental state, where they are in life. I personally like the art. It's actually probably my favorite part of this. Well, I'll get into the things I didn't like about it and give you a final review in a little bit. But what are the things you liked about it, Jesse?
I also really liked the art. But overall, I just thought it was a really tight, simple, original story, I thought. Yes, in the history of comics, we've gotten many super villain origins. But this one did it really well in terms of what I said earlier about kind of expressing how it was less about his circumstance and more about how his attitude towards the world around him and how he viewed his relationships with his family, not necessarily how things actually were. And I thought it was a really interesting character piece. I enjoyed all the kills that he did. I thought that they were all really well done. The one with his girlfriend at the beginning was quick and unexpected. The one with the cops with the bear and the lasso, I thought was really cool.
That was ridiculous.
It was cool, man.
That was ridiculous.
What, because it was a bear?
I don't understand. Okay, this is my issue with that.
Okay.
I don't understand how he lassoed a bear. The cape only gives him, as far as we know, the ability to fly.
Right.
How on earth could he lasso a full-grown grizzly bear and fly him across town to drop into a car? He doesn't have super strength. If I recall, a bear weighs quite a lot of pounds that the average man probably couldn't lift. I might be wrong. I could be wrong. Maybe a man can lift a bear. Okay. Maybe Jebediah Springfield can lift a bear. I don't know. He fought one. I'm not an expert, but I'm pretty sure the cape doesn't give him super strength.
It didn't give him super strength, but what if the way that the cape's powers actually work is it levitates what it's connected to, and therefore, because he was holding a rope and the bear was tied to the rope, because of that chain, the cape was able to levitate the bear as well? That's the only actual explanation I can think of.
I disagree with that for the sole fact that there's 2 panels in this. Just before he kills his girlfriend. He's flying high up in the air, they got the moon in the background, and she's like, oh, this is so nice. Then he starts going on about how, I didn't like that you dropped me. And he pushes her out from him and holds her by the wrists.
Yeah.
When he's holding her by the wrists, she's not floating. She's dangling. Oh. Then he drops her.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it necessarily works in that same capacity.
Keep talking. I'm looking at this. You're right.
Yeah.
He's dangling her.
That's what I mean. So I don't think the cape extends out its powers. Because even actually, again, in the fight at the end with his brother, when he flies him up in the air after he's punched him in the face repeatedly, it's the same thing. He's able to cut the cape, hold on to the cape as his brother falls. Mm-hmm. But he's dangling when his brother is, holding him up in the air. So the cape's power doesn't extend past the wearer.
Well, it does look like, and maybe it explains this a little bit better in the short story. But it definitely looks like he is lifting it, because he looks like he's kind of sweating and
that's still a bear.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
That is a full-grown bear. Like I said, Jebediah Springfield, we know, fought a bear.
Right.
There's
a difference between fighting a bear and lifting a bear.
Yeah. That's pretty extreme. And he didn't just lift a bear to walk 5 steps. He lifted a bear and flew him all the way back across town. I can't imagine that he lived next to the zoo.
Yeah.
So some of the stuff I was a little confused about, but I think that comes down to the fact that as good of a story as it is, there's not a lot of writing in it. A lot of the story is reflective in the art, but even that I still feel leaves out some little details that might have been useful. Because I was left wondering if maybe he has super strength as well, but then he didn't have super strength. So that's what I mean. The art is important as the art is in this, in order to convey the story that you're reading. I still feel that there was not enough either art or text.
There was a missing piece somewhere in there
to complete the story, which is actually one of my issues with this.
I think that I do think it was very well written, and I disagree with your terminology. I don't think that it's that there wasn't a lot of writing; it's that there wasn't a lot of dialogue.
Okay, well that's kind of what I meant.
The panels, I know what you meant, but the writer still kind of plans out the panels, and does. Yeah. Well, every team works differently, but I did think that it was well written in the sense that even in terms of the panels that didn't have dialogue and stuff, it overall told the story really well. There are a couple inconsistencies, like you said, but overall, I think that they did do a good job with the visual storytelling and visually laying out. And as I said, I don't disagree that the artwork, the panels, they're very crucial to understand the story. It's like when we discussed in episode 2 when we did Batman Long Halloween, mm-hmm. how you had to really pay attention to the panels in order to understand where the story was going, because it relied heavily on the art. Mm-hmm. This definitely relies heavily on the art, but again, there's not enough dialogue going on that the art can't do the whole story itself. You still need to have that was my opinion. It needed to have a little more dialogue to help better explain things. Again, it's short. I understand it's a short story, but it felt kind of rushed at some points. This almost feels like it's within a day and a half. It did move quick. It was story beat after story beat.
Yeah, he basically killed 1,000+ people in a day and a half. He is a terrorist by definition, mm-hmm. but it went really quickly. The story actually does take place over a longer period of time, because we know for a fact that it even says for the next couple months they had some issues in their apartment, and then they split up and moved out, and he moved home. Mm-hmm. That's where he gets the cape, and that's when. But
that's also kind of before it really picks up.
That's fair, I guess. But, the story itself does take place over a long... the whole story takes place over a long period of time. But you get to him moving out and them splitting up mm-hmm. fairly quickly. And then, 3 pages later, he's killed his girlfriend. And he's turned his sights on killing his mom. And then... it unraveled very quickly. Yeah. And I felt that it was very rushed because there wasn't enough dialogue to go along with the fact that it was unraveling so quickly.
So do you think it could have been a better story with another chapter or two?
I definitely think another chapter or two would have added greatly to the content. There's actually one point where he disappears for a while after the incident with his brother and the cigarette that he throws at his face and lights him on fire. He actually disappears for a little while. You could have done another chapter between that. Yeah. Right? Him now trying to reestablish himself to get back and get revenge. But again, I mean, it's based off a short story. I'm sure the short story covers significantly more, because even with the short story, it's all dialogue. Again, this book, which it's not bad, but the art is incredibly crucial, but doesn't do enough to illustrate the full story.
Well, I think it should kind of be a marriage between the both, and I think that's what's kind of great about comics. You look at old 60s comics that are just so wordy and it's so hard to get through.
I love that.
But then you also look at books that are just all art, and a lot of the times that works. So does the wordy thing, don't get me wrong. But I think that overall, though, the medium should kind of merge the two to tell its story. I think you should kind of have to pay attention to the art the way that you pay attention to the dialogue.
Of course. I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm saying that the art can't be... In a case like this, the art is not enough to carry the entire story. Mm-hmm. There's just not enough dialogue to understand the full picture of what's going on. All I'm getting in a very quick 30-minute read, this guy gets a flying cape, he becomes a super mass murderer, he gets killed. It's almost like it happens in one night.
Yeah.
So that's my overall on that. Those are my negatives, I guess.
I don't think I have as many negatives as you. I do agree that it could have used an extra chapter, but overall, for what it is, I do think it worked. Again, like, to me, this isn't a big, long, epic story. This is a quick little character piece. Mm-hmm. And I think that maybe it could have used another chapter, but I think if it would have been too stretched out, it wouldn't have worked that way either. One
thing I do think that this does kind of convey well, I mean, we kind of discussed this a little bit, but it actually does kind of give you an insight into someone who may be suffering from a form of mental illness. I mean, in a lot of cases, he acts almost uncharacteristic of himself, and several of the characters mention that, and that's the reason his girlfriend and his brother are in such close contact, is because they're actually concerned about him. He is kind of becoming destable.
Well, it's actually interesting that you say that, because earlier on when it's kind of talking about that, it makes a point of kind of talking about these really bad headaches that he's getting. And
actually, yes. Actually, after his accident, he does suffer from chronic headaches, mm-hmm. which cause him a lot of pain. And, it kind of unravels from there. I mean, it's an interesting viewpoint. It is interesting as well that he does become a supervillain. I mean,
I'm not going to lie. To me, reading this story and it doesn't really give him more sympathy in terms as...
Well, no. I mean, he is a mass murderer who's selfish, but he does exhibit some symptoms mm-hmm. of mental illness. I mean, he does become delirious. He's envisioning scenarios of his ex-girlfriend and brother having sex with each other, which is not even in the world that they're in. It's not happening. It's not happening. He becomes obsessively jealous. Mm-hmm. He has a warped sense of, how his mother treats him, how his brother views him, how the cops are, they're kind of giving him the hassle, and he's like, screw these guys. They don't understand. So there is this kind of element to it. Like, I don't know. I mean, the character obviously doesn't evolve much past this. At this point, he basically is set on becoming a murderer. He has the cape. He's going to go murder people. So you don't really get more involved with his actual mental state. But it does touch on that. And I thought that was kind of an interesting concept. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
And, I really liked... another thing that I really liked was also his relationship with his brother. And how, early on, you see these two kids playing together, and then you kind of see one go one way and one go the complete opposite way. And you see his brother really loves him.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Actually really wants the best for him. It's not like he's successful and rubbing it in his face. No. He wants to help him.
Yep.
Even after he's killed his girlfriend and he's killed the cops, he still wants to help him. He wants to sort it out. it really kind of goes to show you that, your attitude with things and, how you kind of treat people around you go a long way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree with that. So this episode is probably going to be a little bit shorter, mostly because this book was a lot shorter.
Yeah.
So I guess, what would you give this out of 10? Justin?
Out of 10, I would give it a 7.
Give it a 7? And the main reasons being?
I thought it was good. I really liked it. It didn't change my world. It was a good, tight little character piece about a dude who turns evil. I'm glad I read it, but I don't know if I would call up all my buddies and go on and on about it. But yeah, it was good.
I would give it a 6.5 out of 10.
Yeah.
The main reason being, I like the premise.
Mm-hmm.
The book felt really rushed. I really like the artwork, but because the story's so rushed, if there was an extra chapter in there, not even necessarily of dialogue, just, an extra chapter's length of panels. If you had maybe an extra, say, 10 or 15 pages in the book that kind of helped graphically illustrate what was going on a little more clearly, I think that would definitely add to it.
Mm-hmm.
So I would give it a 6.5. I wouldn't not recommend it, but I wouldn't necessarily. It's not the first thing I would recommend.
No.
Okay, so that is this week's episode of Comic Asylum.
Sorry, it's kind of short, guys. We're going to be doing Teen Titans in a couple episodes, and I'm going to have a lot to say about that. So I'm sure you'll get an extra long episode to compensate.
Is there a specific Teen Titans we're doing?
We're going to be doing the first book of the Jeff Johns run.
Okay.
But next week, I think that it's coming out soon.
What's coming out soon?
Civil War.
Civil War?
So you know what I think we should read next time?
What?
Civil War.
Do you want to do that next time or the time after?
I mean, it's coming out in a few days, so we should probably do it next time.
Okay, so we'll do that next and then Teen Titans?
We're going to do that next and then Teen Titans, okay, guys?
So Civil War is actually what we're doing next.
Yeah, we're doing Civil War, and then we're going to do Teen Titans, and Teen Titans will probably be a long episode, and then, yeah, we'll take it from there.
He's the content manager, and he couldn't even remember what order we were doing things in.
I do, just...
Sure, buddy. Okay, so that's it for this week's Comic
I thought
Asylum.
it would be suspenseful if it was like, what we're doing next. Thought I'd change it up a little bit.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
sorry,
Yeah,
Sean.
whatever.
If
Okay.
that is your real name.
That is my real name.
Is it?
Actually, yes, it is.
Okay.
Okay, so that's this week's episode of Comic Asylum. Thank you for joining us.
See you later. I'm going to go ID, Sean.
You realize at the beginning of the episode, you stated the fact that you knew I was Sean, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's this week's episode. Thanks.
Bye.